My name is Mara Kincaid, 30 years old. The email came on a Tuesday morning. Subject line wrapped in pastel fonts. We're so excited to welcome baby Ethan. I was halfway through my second coffee at work, already juggling deadlines, when I clicked it. The invitation was a full production. Floating teddy bears, soft watercolor balloons, even a link to the registry. I smiled at first. My sister had always been theatrical, leaning into the spotlight like it was oxygen. A baby shower seemed like the perfect stage. I expected maybe a few overpriced onesies, some organic bottles, or a hand-woven mobile that would cost more than rent. But what loaded on my screen wasn't whimsy. It was a manifesto. Front and center. A stroller imported from Sweden. Price tag $12,000. Embroidered with initials. Leather handle gleaming. Then a crib. $6,800. From some boutique in Los Angeles that apparently only released 5 per year. A $400 wipe warmer. A diaper pail requiring a monthly subscription. And, at the bottom of the list, something that made me choke on my coffee. A contribution pool for a house. Goal, $100,000. And not a joke in sight. I scrolled twice, slowly, as if maybe my eyes had misfired. The numbers didn't blur. They sharpened. For a second, I actually laughed so hard I had to sit down, earning a few strange glances from coworkers. I earned good money, but even I wasn't about to blow a paycheck, so a newborn could nap in something more expensive than my first car. For half a second, I wondered if she'd been hacked, or if her husband, the smug little grifter I'd never trusted, had hijacked the registry as some tasteless scam. But curiosity turned to dread. I dialed her number. "Hello?" she answered. Voice sugar-sweet but defensive, like she already knew what was coming. "What is this?" I asked, forcing a laugh. "The stroller, the crib, the house fund? Tell me you're kidding." Silence. Then her voice hardened. "I don't appreciate that tone, Mara. We're building a life now. Our circle understands what it means to invest in family." I pinched the bridge of my nose. Invest? Most people bring a blanket or a few books, maybe a pack of diapers. That's called being normal. "You've always been small-minded," she snapped. "If you can't support our vision, maybe you shouldn't bother showing up." That's when I heard him, her husband, snatching the phone, his voice dripping smugness. "If you're not going to be part of the future, then stay in the past." The line went dead. I stayed in the past that night, curled on my couch with a glass of wine and a lasagna I didn't have to share. No stroller, no crib, no down payment contribution, just silence. I figured that was the end of it. But arrogance never dies quietly. 3 days later, my phone buzzed with 3 missed calls, 2 angry texts from Cousin Marie, and a Facebook post the length of a novel. My sister had written a martyr's anthem, starting with, "Some people just can't handle when others win." It was all there. Family jealousy, toxic negativity, punishment for dreaming big. I ignored it for a day, then Cousin Jenny forwarded me photos from the shower. My sister had gone full influencer mode. Balloon arches taller than the house, a professional photographer capturing every angle, a massive gift table staged like an altar. Except, it was empty. A couple of gift cards, 2 small boxes, nothing else. Yet the next day, she posted brand new photos. The entire nursery, immaculate. The stroller gleaming, crib arranged with ribbons, bottles lined like trophies. The caption oozed gratitude about being surrounded by so much support. But something was off. I leaned closer to the screen. Tags dangled from the stroller, glossy, untouched. The crib mattress was still sealed in plastic. Everything looked showroom perfect. Too perfect. My brother called 10 minutes later. "You see it?" "See what?" "The stroller," he said, smirking. 5 minutes on Google reverse image search. It's from a luxury baby rental site. You can rent the whole setup, crib, stroller, even the diaper bag, for $300 a day. Instagram moms do it all the time for shoots. I sat back, cold settling in my stomach. It wasn't just greed, it was performance, delusion, a fantasy she demanded everyone else fund. That's when the laughter stopped, because I knew something my sister didn't think I knew, something I'd buried for years. She had always been reckless, entitled, obsessed with appearances, but in 2020, I saw the truth. She'd moved back in with Mom and Dad, swearing it was temporary. Just a few weeks. She stayed 6 months. claimed she was job hunting, but I came home mid-afternoon to find her screaming at her laptop. Not resumes. Online poker. Blackjack. Sports bets. Her savings vanished in 3 months. Then her jewelry. Then the laptop itself. One night, I found her in the kitchen, crying, whispering she was in debt, begged me not to tell Mom. I lent her $12,200. It evaporated in 3 days. She promised she'd pay me back after the streak turned. I never saw a cent. Worse, she started siphoning. A transfer from Mom's account. Purchases she returned for cash. When I confronted her, she brushed it off. Accidents happen. Mom believed her, told me not to make things worse, so I shut my mouth. Now, staring at that fake nursery, I realized the pattern had never ended. It had only evolved. So I stopped laughing. I didn't blast her on Facebook. I'm not her. But I picked up the phone and called Aunt Deb. My voice trembled as I asked if she really planned to contribute to the down payment pool. Deb chuckled nervously. Of course not. But the registry? It's a bit much, don't you think? That's not the half of it, I said, heart pounding. And for the first time, I told the truth. About the gambling, the fake gifts, the rentals staged for Instagram. Silence stretched on the line. Then Deb whispered, Mara, I already sent her $2,000. I closed my eyes. That was it. The first domino tipped. Within 48 hours, 6 relatives had called me asking for the full story. I didn't hold back this time. I'd protected her long enough, and as my words spread, the walls of her carefully constructed fantasy began to crack. But here's the part that still unsettles me. I wasn't sure if I wanted her to fall, or if part of me still wanted her to be saved, because what came next would shatter more than just her illusions. By Friday, my phone felt like a furnace in my hand, notifications glowing, buzzing, dying down, then sparking back to life. Word travels faster than shame. It moves in whispers first, then in ringtones. Aunt Deb called me again, her voice smaller than usual. I asked for the money back, she said. $2,000. I sent a short note, no judgment, just a request. And? Read, she sighed. I heard a paper rustle. In this family, we don't put price tags on love. Deb exhaled a brittle laugh. That was her reply. I stared at my wall clock ticking just above a framed photo from some long-ago Christmas before everything got complicated. You don't owe her a lecture, Deb, I said. You owe yourself a boundary. She used to tumble in the grass with my boys, Deb whispered, as if memories were witnesses she had to appease. I want to believe she's just scared. She is scared, I said, and skilled. Those make a dangerous pair. By evening, Cousin Jenny texted. I pulled out of the sip and see planning. I can't do this with a straight face. Uncle Rob left me a voicemail, voice clipped and tired. If she calls me, I'm going to say no and hang up. I'm done being a wallet with a pulse. A day later, the tremor reached her husband's side. Mom called from the kitchen of our childhood home, voice pitched low as if walls could gossip. Her mother-in-law phoned me, she said. Polite, kind even, but firm. They've had concerns, missing money, charges that didn't match. She asked if there was anything she should know. And what did you say? I asked. I said I wouldn't lie for my child anymore. I could hear Mom swallow. And then I told her the truth. Something loosened in my chest and cinched tight at the same time. Relief braided with sorrow. How do you feel both? That same night, he called me. Not a number I had saved. Just a neutral string of digits and a pause when I answered, like he hadn't prepared for the sound of my voice. Is this Mara? He asked. It is. This is probably strange, he said carefully, like he was stepping onto a frozen pond. I need to know if my wife has a problem. A real one, not just stress. I thought of the rental stroller's untouched tags, of cashback returns, of the blonde dealer in a pixelated poker room reflected in my sister's pupils when she didn't know I was watching. She does, I said. And pretending she doesn't is another problem. He didn't defend her. He didn't blame me. He just breathed, a measured inhale that sounded like someone memorizing the path out of a burning house. Thank you, he said. I've spoken with someone about our accounts, about keeping things stable for the baby. I caught the subtext. Lawyers don't always announce themselves in sentences. Sometimes they arrive as cautious nouns. Be kind, I said. Be careful. I was both, he said, voice steady now, for a long time. When we hung up, the quiet felt heavier, like silence with elbows. The next afternoon, my doorbell rang without warning. I knew the rhythm of that touch before I even checked the peephole. Impatient, performative, like knocking was a stage and she was hitting her mark. I opened the door to my sister standing on my porch in oversized sunglasses, hair scraped into a ponytail too tight to be casual. Her phone was in her hand, recording, God help me, or maybe she was just gripping it like a talisman. She swept past me without being invited, words spilling like coins that didn't belong to her. You think you're a hero, she said, storming toward my kitchen. Congratulations, you lit the match and walked away. Now everything's burning, and you're posting quotes about boundaries. I don't post quotes, I said, closing the door quietly. I don't perform at all. She whirled. Aunt Deb wants her money back. Jenny's acting like I asked her to sell a kidney. His mother, her breath hitched. He moved out, Mara. He packed a bag and said he's staying with them until things calm down. She threw air quotes that sliced. You did this. No, I said, you did this. I just stopped covering it. Her face flickered, hurt, fury, calculation. You're jealous, she said, as if reciting a spell. You've always been... Jealous of what? I asked, and my voice surprised me with how gentle it sounded. The panic between your ribs? The way you can't sleep unless you've got a plan to make someone else fix it? We stared at each other, two continents finally admitting the ocean between them. Then I added low, you're lucky I didn't tell them the rest. Something in her faltered. For a heartbeat, she was the girl in our parents' kitchen, whispering, please don't tell, eyes glossy with ruined promises. Then she straightened, regrouped, and spat out, if you won't help me, at least stop sabotaging me. I'm not sabotaging you, I said. I'm refusing to be your insurance policy. She left without slamming the door. That was somehow worse. I stood at the sink, fingers curled around the counter until the laminate left little half-moons in my skin. When my phone buzzed again, I didn't check it for a long time. That night, Mom called, voice brittle. I'm tired, Mara. I know. I'm tired of remembering birthdays and forgetting to say no. She drew in a breath that felt like a confession. I've enabled her. I told myself I was loving her. Maybe I was just scared of losing her. Those things can look identical, I said. What would you do if you were me? I looked at the dark square of my kitchen window, my own reflection framed by night. Tell the truth once and let it stand. She was quiet for a long, sacred beat. Okay, she said finally. The family group chat dinged 20 minutes later. It was a place of emojis and casserole photos, political landmines, and baby pictures. Now it held a single message from my mother. No more money. If you choose to help her, do it knowing the truth. There were no fireworks after, no debate, just a long, cold quiet that spread through the branches of the family like frost. Over the next week, what used to be easy for her became sticky. People who'd always bent began to hold their shape. The babysitter she'd raved about messaged her that a family emergency meant she couldn't start next month after all. The yoga coworker, like a sister, my sister had always bragged, softly untagged herself from old photos. The neighbor who had promised to sew custom curtains for the nursery stopped answering texts. Even the cheerful barista who called her sunshine looked through her like she was weather on a different horizon. And then the refund started. Aunt Deb's email was civil and surgical. Given recent information, I'm requesting the return of my contribution. Cousin Jenny, whose generosity had always been half money and half errands, sent a Venmo request with a single leaf emoji, as if forgiveness might grow there if watered. A family friend from the in-laws' side, Lisa, the one my sister had delighted in impressing, wrote, I can't carry this for you. No response from my sister. Not to them, not to me. Avoidance became the new performance. Silence, her most persuasive costume. Uncle Rob called me. 2 mornings in a row, his gravel voice carved by decades of shift work. I told her husband months ago I'd help redo the nursery, he said. We even priced paint. Then I learned she blew their joint savings on a parlay she said was guaranteed. I pulled out. I told him to get out before she takes everything that isn't nailed down. I didn't ask how he knew the word parlay. Families learn each other's vocabularies the way cities learn the names of storms. By midweek, my sister's Instagram slowed to a trickle of vague quotes in white serif fonts on beige backgrounds. Growth is painful. Change is painful. And then went dark. That's the thing about curated lives. They starve without applause. Her husband texted me again, 3 words that didn't pretend to be brave. Thank you for clarity. Clarity is heavier than it looks. You don't carry it. It carries you. whether you want to go or not. 2 days later, she came back to my door. No sunglasses this time. No makeup, no gloss. The sheen was gone, and so was the stage. She looked smaller. Not performative small, a different kind, like her bones had learned something heavy. Her hands were empty. Her phone stayed in her pocket. "I need help," she said. "What kind?" I asked. "The kind I can't ask for on Facebook." I waited, the way you wait to see if a wave is going to break or just lean in. "I don't have it," she said, eyes on the floor. "The money Deb wants. Jenny's, I can't make it right." "You don't have to make it right all at once," I said, "but you have to stop making it worse." She nodded, a small, tired motion. "He left," she whispered. "He said it's for the baby, for calm." "It is," I said, "and it's also for him." She flinched, then gathered herself. "Will you talk to Mom? Will you tell her to call off the dogs?" I blinked. It was so fast, the pivot from humility to choreography, that if you didn't know her, you might have missed it. "There are no dogs," I said. "There's just the truth, and it's going to keep standing there whether you look at it or not." For once, she didn't argue. She just nodded again and left, quiet as snowfall. That evening, the group chat lit up one last time with my mother's voice, even steadier than before. "I love my daughter. I will not fund her choices. Please do what your conscience allows." Nobody replied, but the message didn't need companions. It was a door closed with kindness. After that, the house felt too silent, so I washed dishes I'd already washed and organized a drawer that was already neat. When I finally sat, my heartbeat still sounded like footsteps. I thought of that first email, the pastel subject line, the floating bears, and how my first instinct had been to laugh. Funny how we laugh at things that scare us. Maybe it's our last polite way of saying no to a storm we already feel in our bones. I didn't sleep much. Around 3 a.m., I stared at the ceiling and made a list in my head. Things I had held for her, things I had broken for her, things I would not hold or break again. By morning, a different kind of quiet settled in. Less like frost, more like a sky without weather. And somewhere inside that quiet, a small, unwelcome thought found me. Collapse can be a kind of mercy, if you let it be. I didn't know yet how far she'd fall. I only knew the dominoes were done asking for permission. The days after Mom's message unfolded like an avalanche, silent at first, then unstoppable. My sister's life didn't implode in fireworks. It collapsed in slow motion, one brittle piece at a time, like glass shattering in water. The registry money evaporated. The stroller went back to its warehouse. The crib was listed online under a lightly used tag, even though it had never held a baby. The designer diaper bag reappeared on a resale site with the tax tag still attached. What was left was fragments, receipts, and debt. Then came the emails. Aunt Deb's request for repayment was followed by Jenny's Venmo ping. Then Lisa from the in-laws' side sent a short, sharp message. "Considering the circumstances, please return the $500 I contributed." Each demand was clipped, polite, but edged with something harder. A warning. My sister responded to none of them. She ghosted, hoping silence would dissolve into forgetfulness. Instead, it calcified into anger. The quieter she went, the louder everyone else became. Uncle Rob cornered me on the phone one morning. "I told her husband," he growled, "that if he doesn't get out now, she'll take him down with her. I warned him months ago. Thought maybe he was too blind to listen. Guess he's not." And sure enough, her husband had already set his exit in motion. His texts to me were clinical, stripped of emotion. Separating finances, filing paperwork, for stability. He didn't use the word divorce. Not yet. But the implication bled through every word. 2 days later, he left her. He told her he needed space. That was the sentence she repeated to anyone who asked. But I knew better. Space was code for legal distance. A friend of his worked in family law. He was protecting what little was left. When she showed up at my house again, she didn't come with sunglasses or rehearsed fury this time. She came in an Uber, alone, shoulders caved inward, face bare. She didn't cry. That almost unnerved me more. "I need help," she said quietly. Not desperate, just hollow. I stood in the doorway. "How much?" Her eyes flicked to mine and away. "I don't know. I don't even know the number anymore." The silence between us was long enough to feel like a third person in the room. I thought of 20 noon 20, of the crying in the kitchen, of the $2,200 that disappeared in 3 days. You need more than money, I said. She let out a bitter laugh. You think I don't know that? For the first time in years, I believed her. She looked exhausted, stripped of performance, of filters, of props. Just tired. Real. Human. And still dangerous. Because exhausted people make promises they can't keep. I can't fix this, I said, gentler than I expected. I won't fix this. She left without argument, and that silence felt heavier than any screaming match we'd ever had. The next blow didn't land on me. It landed on our uncle, the one who had co-signed a $20,000 private student loan for her years ago. He called me late at night, his voice like gravel ground down to dust. She told me it was on auto pay, he said. It wasn't. I just got the letter. She hasn't paid in months. Now I'm responsible. I closed my eyes. I'm sorry, Uncle Rob. I'm done, he said flatly. She's not just reckless, she's dangerous. I didn't argue. He was right. 2 weeks later, the baby was born. No balloon arches, no curated nursery shots. Just a dim hospital room, fluorescent light leaking across a beige wall, and a newborn wrapped in a plain blue blanket. She posted one photo, unfiltered, untagged, comments disabled, just his name and the date. For the first time in years, she didn't ask for anything. No registry links, no fundraisers, no second chances, just the child. And it almost worked. It almost softened me. But then she pivoted again. Weeks after the birth, my boss called me into his office, confusion etched across his face. He held up a resume. Do you know her? He asked. I didn't need to look. I already knew. She says she worked as an executive coordinator for a luxury event firm, he said. Handled budgets, celebrity accounts. Is that true? I stared at the resume, at the lies printed in neat black ink. That firm belonged to a college friend of mine. My sister had never worked there. She had once babysat their dog. She lied, I said. My voice was steady, but inside it trembled. And if you hire her, she'll lie here too. My boss didn't argue. He shredded the resume on the spot, the paper whirring as it was eaten alive. That's a new one, he murmured. That night, my phone buzzed with an unknown number, one line of text. You've ruined everything for me. I blocked it without hesitation. But I knew the storm wasn't over, because when people like her lose their audience, they don't fade. They wait. They reload. The knock came 5 days later, not at her door, but at hers. A manila envelope handed across the threshold. Papers served. Temporary custody shifted. The baby was now to spend 3 days a week with his father, moving toward a formal agreement. She didn't rage online this time. Didn't post vague quotes about betrayal or snakes. She went silent. And silence in her world was never peace. It was plotting. Her silence broke like glass, sudden, sharp, cutting deeper than the noise ever had. 3 weeks after the custody papers were served, a link appeared in Cousin Jenny's inbox. Subject line, help a new mom rebuild her life. Jenny slid her phone across the coffee table to me at our weekly coffee meet, her hand trembling. It was a GoFundMe. Goal, $50,000. My sister had written a sob story in looping paragraphs about raising her baby alone, abandoned by toxic family, escaping an abusive marriage, fighting to survive with no support system. She painted herself as a phoenix in ashes, ready to rise if only strangers would help her spread her wings. And there at the top of the page was a photo of me, holding her newborn in the hospital, cropped tight to cut out the hospital tags, edited to blur the weariness from my face. She made it look like I was standing beside her, a partner in this comeback story. The caption underneath read, "Even my sister, though distant, believes in second chances." I almost dropped Jenny's phone. My stomach turned so violently I had to grip the edge of the table. It wasn't desperation anymore. It was theft. Within hours, donations were rolling in. $50 here, $200 there. One old yoga instructor she used to brag about chipped in $500 with a note that read, "Always rooting for you." Jenny stared at me, wide-eyed. What do we do? I didn't yell. I didn't call. I didn't even text. I started building a file. Screenshots of the GoFundMe page. The registry from months ago. The photo of the rented stroller with tags dangling. Screenshots of texts where she promised refunds, then vanished. Receipts of debts left unpaid. The fake resume she'd sent my boss. I sent it all to GoFundMe. Less than 2 days later, the campaign vanished. The money, almost $3,000, refunded to donors. But the fallout wasn't digital. The yoga instructor who donated posted publicly on Facebook, "I gave money to someone I thought was in crisis. Turns out it was all lies. She used her own family as props. This is why trust is so fragile." The post spread like wildfire, shared, commented, dissected. Neighbors chimed in, old co-workers, friends who'd kept quiet until then. Her last fragile circle crumbled under the weight of betrayal. And that's when she showed up again. It was late at night when Mom called me, voice hushed. "She's here," Mom whispered. "On the porch, with the baby." I drove over. By the time I arrived, my sister was inside, sitting at the dining table with a grocery bag by her feet, half a box of formula, a pack of diapers. No designer tote this time. No curated performance. Just survival supplies. Her face was bare, her eyes red, not from fake crying, but from real exhaustion. The baby slept against her chest, his tiny breath soft, oblivious to the wreckage he'd been born into. "I'm not here to ask for money," she said quietly when she saw me. "I just need a place to rest. I need to figure things out." For a flicker of a moment, I almost believed her. But then, too soon, she slipped. "Can you talk to Mom for me?" she asked. "Convince her to tell people to stop, to let me breathe. You've already ruined so much." Mom's chair scraped against the floor as she stood. Her voice was low, steady, the kind of voice she only used when she'd had enough. "Mara didn't ruin your life," she said. "You did that. She just stopped covering for you." The room went still. My sister's lips parted, but no sound came out. It was the first time she'd been told the truth without a cushion. The next day, she sent a message to the family group chat. No emojis, no drama, just words. "I've made a lot of mistakes. I'm trying to fix them. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want to do better. If anyone wants to see the baby, I'd be grateful. If not, I understand." Responses trickled in. Jenny said she'd bring baby clothes. Uncle Rob wrote that he'd pray for her. Aunt Deb sent a thumbs-up emoji, the closest thing to a treaty she'd ever give. I stayed silent. A week later, an email from my sister appeared in my inbox. It was long, longer than any apology I'd ever seen from her. She wrote about therapy sessions, about meetings she was attending, about stocking shelves at a local grocery store. She admitted shame, said she didn't even recognize herself anymore. She wrote that she didn't blame me anymore, that she understood why I did what I did, that she wanted her son to see what accountability looked like. She wrote that she'd save a seat for me at every birthday, every holiday, no matter how many years passed. "You'll always be welcome," she wrote. I read it twice, and for a brief, fragile moment, it almost worked. But then I remembered every apology that came before, the tears in the kitchen, the promises that dissolved, the scams that followed. I remembered the way she'd used my face on her fundraiser without permission. So I didn't reply. I let the email sit in my inbox for a week. Then I deleted it. No response, no closure, just silence. Christmas Eve came. Jenny organized a small dinner, cautious but hopeful. Mom called the night before, voice thick. "Just for the baby," she pleaded. "Please think about coming." That morning, I brewed coffee, stared at my ceiling, and wired $1,000 to Mom's account with a note. "For the baby's first Christmas. Use it how you want." Then I stayed home. Later, I heard the dinner was quiet. The baby wore a donated red sweater and smiled the whole night. My sister was calm. Different, they said. Not fixed, but softer. Maybe she was, but I wasn't going back. The holidays passed in cautious whispers. A Christmas that once would have been bloated with expectation was now quiet, pared down to survival. From what I was told, the dinner Jenny arranged felt less like celebration and more like a truce. No big speeches, no fights, just safe conversations circling around the baby, as if everyone had silently agreed he was the only reason worth gathering anymore. I wasn't there. I'd sent money through Mom, a practical gesture stripped of sentiment. And yet, even absent, I felt tethered to the moment by secondhand reports. They said the baby smiled all night. They said my sister seemed calmer, smaller, like she had finally stepped off the stage she'd been performing on for years. Maybe that was true, but I knew better than to confuse quiet with change. In January, she texted me for the first time in weeks. Just one line, "Thank you for not giving up on me completely." I stared at the screen. My thumb hovered. I didn't respond, because not giving up wasn't the same as letting her back in. Still, I couldn't deny the reports trickling through family like weather updates. Jenny stopped by and said the apartment looked clean. The baby well fed, my sister tired, but real. Aunt Deb left old toys from her basement on the porch. Uncle Rob tucked a check into a card with a note scrawled on the inside. For the baby, not you. Even Mom extended an olive branch, an invitation for Sunday dinner. Just her and the baby. It wasn't redemption. It was something smaller, fragile, like people circling a wild animal that might still bite, but lowering their hands slowly. She didn't ask for money again. She didn't post vague quotes online. Her Instagram went private, her GoFundMe was dead, and for the first time in years, she got a real part-time job stocking shelves at a grocery store. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't curated. But it was something. Every so often, I'd get another email from her. Long, vulnerable confessions about therapy, about trying to find her reflection in the mirror again. She wrote that she wanted her son to know what accountability looked like, that she'd save me a seat at every birthday party in case I changed my mind. And I'll admit it, I read them, sometimes more than once, sometimes with tears I wouldn't let anyone else see, because a part of me wanted to believe. But then I'd remember. I'd remember every apology that dissolved into the next scam. I'd remember the money she siphoned from Mom's account, the $12,200 she burned through in 3 days, the way she'd cropped my face into her GoFundMe pitch like I was her accomplice. Forgiveness is not amnesia. It's not the erasure of scars, and my life was already tattooed with the damage of her chaos. So I didn't respond. The months blurred into a tentative routine. She kept to her quiet circle, sending updates to the family group chat. Sometimes a blurry photo of the baby smiling with applesauce on his cheeks. Sometimes a short message. First steps today. Never a demand. Never an ask. And I stayed on the sidelines, silent but watching. Not because I hated her, because I finally understood peace was fragile, and I had no intention of letting her near mine. When Easter came, Mom called me with a careful voice. She's different, she said. Not cured, not fixed, but different. I think she's really working on herself. I just listened, because maybe she was. Maybe she had finally decided to climb out of the pit she'd spent years digging. But whether or not she rose didn't matter to me anymore. What mattered was that I no longer felt the urge to climb down there after her. She still sends me updates. A photo of her son on his first birthday, cake smeared on his face, his eyes wide with wonder. A quick text on Thanksgiving. Grateful for family, even from afar. Nothing manipulative, nothing sharp, just human. And I don't reply. Because my silence is not punishment, it's preservation. Some love survives by drawing boundaries so high they almost look like walls. Mine has become one of those. I don't wish her harm. I even wish her well. But wishing doesn't mean walking back into the fire. In the end, she found her way back to parts of the family. Small steps, small gestures. But I didn't. I chose to remain outside the circle. Because even if she rebuilt her life perfectly, even if every apology became truth, the scars she left in mine are permanent. And some of us need distance not to hate, but to heal. The story didn't end with a blowout fight or a cinematic reconciliation. It ended in something quieter. A locked door, a baby's laugh, muffled through it, and me on the other side, grateful, resolved, at peace. Because sometimes love doesn't mean letting someone in. Sometimes love means knowing when not to open the door,